Bam, thanks so much for talking to me. It's great to see you again, brother. It's good. Deja vu, right? So, in the interest of listeners, we actually started this conversation 20 minutes ago. So now we're just doing the official introductions for the interview. Caught up a little bit. But it's great to talk to you. Since I've been doing this series, I've been kind of trying to talk to musicians also a lot about dealing with this whole situation and from different perspectives. One guy's like Daniel Bennett, who's just a very optimistic person. He's a sax player, and he from the start he was like, "Oh, this creativity. We need to use this. This is a creative renaissance." And then I talked to John Madoff, who's a close friend and one of my favorite musicians, because he's a label owner. So I wanted to get that, and I thought it'd be really cool to talk to you primarily because a lot of people have been active and have been doing a lot of work, but you've been the most active. You've been doing the Music to Be Bored series every day, basically, and it's such an interesting project. And plus, we talked, and you told me that this whole situation, you didn't think it was heavy for you. It was an opportunity to be more creative. So I'd like to expand on that a little bit. So let's start off, first of all, with Music to Be Bored. Now, tell me how you got into that. You've been posting these videos religiously every day at, like, it's 9 o'clock Eastern, right? When you post.
Yeah, exactly.
And for like an hour and doing this music, electronic music. Tell me a bit how that came to your mind, why you decided to do that.
Man, well, first of all, thanks for having me here.
It's a pleasure,
Indeed,
man.
deja vu. Last time was in Timisoara. So what the project is, I'm going to tell you a story. I went to a show a couple of years ago with my friend Jarfa Hatila from Budapest.
Okay.
He's a drummer
Mm-hmm.
and good friend of mine. We used to study together back in the Netherlands, in The Hague. And he told me, let's go see this great concert. It's a band called Big and Ruth. And so we went to see the concert, and the sound was amazing. It's this beautiful band. It's two upright basses, clarinet, piano, and a synth player. The sound of the band was so beautiful, and there was something about the transitions between song and song that got me in a very particular mood. All the transitions were very similar. It was a color. One song had a color, and then the next song had another color. So there was some sort of crossfade between the two songs. And then the next two songs had a similar kind of vibe. And then by the third or fourth, I think it's the power of habit. I knew what was coming, I just didn't know how. It got me into this state in which I stopped paying attention to the music.
Mm-hmm.
And that did something to my creative brain. I had all these projects back at the time, and I started thinking about those unwillingly. It was not on purpose. And then new ideas came. My creative brain was working from a different perspective, and all these things closed down, all these cycles closed. And I thought, wow, this happened because of sound. Because sound was so good, and it got me in a place where I could, for some reason that I still don't know, not pay attention, not make the musicians the center of what's going on. So instead, the center was me, or whatever is going on inside of me. And I thought, I need to recreate this for other people, because this feeling is great. This feeling is amazing. My creativity was suddenly tripled because of sound. I need to recreate this for other people. So I started Music to Be Bored, which is basically music for people to come sleep, rest, stretch, meditate, write, paint, draw, or simply just be,
Right.
We, especially living in New York or any big city, we have a rhythm of life that is a lot about doing a lot of things. Because if you just are, it's kind of boring. Just being is kind of boring. What's happening now with this whole situation, the whole COVID situation, is that most people are faced with having to just be. And what before was boring now is overwhelming. Now just being is overwhelming for most people. So these are the lines along which this project functions. It's done with a lot of electronic music, modular synthesizers, with the ones with the knobs and the cables and all the things. But I also run acoustic instruments through it, kalimbas, mbirras, my bass. These guys sometimes. And so that's how it came to be. I started doing live shows once a month since January to 2019.
Okay, so you were doing it already before the whole lockdown thing.
I was doing it before, but like once a month, it was cool. It was just an extra thing for me. I did it really for me and hoping to give something to the people I love. Some people started coming religiously to each month thing. So I started taking it seriously. And in January, I opened a thing called Patreon, which is some sort of subscription thing. Like, think of Netflix. You subscribe, and Netflix gives you stuff.
Right.
It's the same thing. You subscribe, and then in this case, I'm Netflix.
Right.
And I give you stuff. So I did it because I wanted an excuse to create, And if people are subscribing, then I know that those people are going to listen.
Right.
And that inspires me. And they can subscribe for very little money, so a lot of people subscribed, and so it kept me going. So it kept me more and more inspired. So when the whole quarantine started, I thought, okay, people are faced with this thing of being overwhelmed by just being. People are faced with not being able to go out. People are facing a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear. If I can do something that I already know it helps other people because I've been doing it, and it helps one person, then I'll do it.
Right.
So I started doing. I did one the next day, and then I got such a response from people that I started doing it every day. I said until the whole crisis is over, I'm gonna do this every single day. Yeah. So I've been doing it, 9 p.m. Eastern time. And people tune in, people subscribe, people watch, and I don't know they're watching, and they tell me like 2 weeks later, like, I've been watching every day, and I'm like, wow, great. So yeah.
So what's the creative process like? This is really interesting because this is essentially real-time creativity, like as opposed to when you're composing something or even playing something at a gig. That's, even if you're improvising, it's acute, but it's centered around something like a theme. This is essentially a real-time creative process of this music just flowing for a long time. How do you think about it? How do you prepare it? Do you think in advance of a theme that you're gonna do? What's the creative structure like of doing these sessions?
When you see the instrument, see if I can show it to you. I'm on the big screen, so I'm not sure how that's gonna work. So that's my little studio. And wait, it's not moving somehow. Okay. No, I think it's not gonna work. Wait, because now you froze.
I froze? No, I'm just sitting.
Can you see me well?
I can see you. Nothing's changed on this end.
Oh, okay, for me, you froze.
Oh.
Anyway, so I cannot see what I'm showing you, but while it defreezes. So it's an instrument it has a lot of cables, a lot of knobs.
Right.
It looks crazy. And it's hard to remember where everything is, where each cable goes. So you need to be very prepared, otherwise you get lost in a second. But prepare doesn't mean, I'm going to plan what I'm going to do, I know exactly everything. Prepare means I know the instrument, I practice the instrument, I know it, and then therefore I can just not prepare. I can just come in, sit right in front of it, and make something up. As a musician that has done a lot of jazz in my life, That's sort of my comfort zone. Not knowing what I'm gonna do is my comfort zone.
Mm.
Not knowing what's going on or what's gonna happen or if it's gonna be good or not. That's I definitely feel comfortable there. So, and I like that because it gives you certain freedom. It allows for the spontaneity to be the boss.
Mm.
And then I basically rely that it's gonna be okay. And some days it's terrible to my own judgment, and some days it's amazing to my own judgment. So, so I don't necessarily prepare. What I've been doing lately is that each night has been a continuation of the previous one.
Okay. Mm.
At the beginning, I used to undo everything, take all the cables apart, and start from zero. Now, what I've been doing is for the past, I think, 2 weeks, I start the night with sounds that I got from the previous night.
Mm-hmm.
And depends on how I'm feeling that day, well, then it goes one way or the other. Because, being isolated and locked out, your mood changes. I mean, my mood changes.
Right.
One day I'm feeling super hopeful and creative and uplifted, and the next day I feel like nothing makes sense. So I'm sure that translates to music. I'm very sure. So I would say my preparation is being me, being the human being I am,
Right.
and letting it flow.
So it really is it's a very mindful process and really is a very meditative kind of state, right? Because you have to be in touch with how you're feeling. You have to be very aware, very mindful of what you're doing, rather than thinking of it, I imagine, as like this product or this art. You just kind of think of what you're thinking about or how you're feeling at that moment. That's what it sounds like to me, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's both mindful and mindless.
Hmm.
I like the combination.
Yeah.
Yeah, if to be honest, if I don't doing something like this, if you don't just allow yourself to be whatever you are and be at whatever point or level or stage that you're at,
Right.
I just don't think you can do it consistently. I don't think it's sustainable, because if you're, let's say, pretending or trying, it's too tiring, man. Every day, doing this every day is too tiring.
Yeah.
So the only way I find that it works, that I can do it, is allowing it to be a space to just be, not label it, not judge it, not care, basically. I'm just gonna be
Right.
for now.
All right. So one of the things that you've been doing creatively lately, that, as I understood from you, it started when this whole situation began with the lockdown, is these stop motion videos and stop motion animation. Tell me a little bit how you became interested in that, and you also said that you're starting to get commissions for it, and you said that it's tied with this creativity of being in this period of lockdown. So how did that begin? How did your interest?
Well, last year I did a video that I was being held by my ex-girlfriend, and she is a cinematographer, photographer, blah, blah. and she got this nice, amazing camera. I made this video, and that made me think, because the love transcended to something else, like we stopped being together. I thought, you know, I don't want to depend on anyone. So it was great, because then I said, okay, I'm gonna buy a camera, and I bought the same camera. It was not her; she had borrowed it from someone. But I just, since I didn't know much about cameras, I just thought, okay, I'm just gonna buy this one because I know this is good. And so my idea was to make these videos. So I was doing videos of just me playing, blah, blah, blah. And then one day, I went to sleep with the recording on loop of a live set that I had done recently, of Music to Be Bored. And I didn't go to my bedroom. I slept in the living room where my studio is. And so I wake up at like 4 a.m., which is a magic hour for me, by the way. And I wake up and I have in my head, as I'm listening to the recording, in my head, I think, wow, this sounds just like Steve Reich's Different Trains, but Bam's version of it. And then I look around, and then I see all these little pigs that you see here, which I have because they sound cool and they're kind of cute. And then I thought, I know what I have to do. I'm gonna make a video with this music. It's not gonna be called Different Trains. It's gonna be called Similar Trains. And I'm gonna have them walk one behind the other. They're all different. One is a pig, the other one is a hippo, a donkey, a cow, a little pig, a platypus. So I'm gonna have them walk all together like a family, and they're all different, but they are a family. And it reminds me of the family that we are, of migrants, of expats, the family that I have created here in New York, for example. We're all from all sort of different places. None of us are blood related, but I've never felt somebody as much a family as these people. And so I did this, and I did a couple scenes, and then it became funny. I didn't plan what I was doing. It became funny to do little things, to discover the personality of each animal. And I just wanted it to reflect on that, on being a family away from home, and all the things you have to do to get to where you want, all the places you have to go. You have to adopt new people, you have to adopt new ways, you have to adapt yourself. So that started the whole thing, because after that I thought, this is a thing. I did it, my friends and people that follow what I do, they loved it, I had such a great response, and I thought, okay, I need to keep doing this. So this was a little bit before the quarantine, and I didn't do anything. And then when the quarantine started, I was like, oh, wait a minute, I'm gonna do this. So I did another one, kind of Corona related. Then I did another one, still with the pigs. And then I started getting into seeing people that do this at a high level. And I thought, okay, I'm gonna bring my level up a little bit. So I started making characters with whatever I had in my head. So I saw this old box of cardboard, and I thought, great, I can have, my characters can be cardboard-based life forms. And which for me was super funny. And so I started doing that. And it was exactly the quarantine, the whole COVID situation that got me into that, because I had a lot of time in my hands. I discovered that I love doing this so much, which I didn't know before. And I didn't have gigs to play. So it all fell together in a beautiful way. And now I cannot see myself not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Which is funny because going back to what we were talking about before about just being, how before COVID it was boring and post COVID is overwhelming. There's something about being bored that is magical, and that's what I chose at the end of the project. There's something about being bored, which I remember somebody saying to me, "You're not bored. If you're bored enough, you're gonna find something to do." And you know, there's so many studies about how boredom enhances your creativity, etc. So um, I think the whole thing of being locked up and not having so much stimulus, not being able to go out, not having live shows to play, not having tours, not having recordings. Suddenly, I have all this time. Suddenly, you have all this time in your hands.
Mm-hmm.
You're not really doing anything, so something's gonna come up. Now, you might take that something seriously or not. I chose to take it seriously. One of the things that allowed me to take it seriously was not caring about whether it was good or not. Just kind of did it because it was fun. And in other times, I'll be like, "Oh, I'd much rather practice or write a song or something." In this time, I was like, "Sure, I'll do it. I'll practice later because I have the time." So there was no kind of pressure to for this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was key. That taught me a couple of things. One, how boredom is so important. B, how not having pressure is the best friend of creativity.
Right. Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I love deadlines and I rarely can't work without one.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a balance there that I find very valuable, and now I'm learning about it. And you know, talking about being active in this during this crisis, I feel very strongly that the world is changing. We all see that. We all know
Right.
it. Some accept it more. Some have more trouble accepting it. I'm in the middle. What I'm sure is that if things change so much, if I don't reinvent myself,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna make it. I spent the last 15 years of my life dedicating every second to do the thing that I love the most, being on a bandstand, interacting with people, improvising with people. All of a sudden, I don't have that. So what am I going to do? I need to reinvent. I need to reevaluate what I want to do. I need to find something that I at least think is fun. I don't have to give it the biggest meaning of my life,
Right.
but at least it can be fun. And I remember a book that I really love by Sufi master Hazrat Inayat Khan. The book is called Sound of Mysticism in Music. And the way the book opens changed a lot of things in me. He says, listen, I played the vina, this instrument, and I was a master. I was really at the top level. I was so good, he says. And one day, I realized that if I want to get closer to God, he says, I need to give up what I love the most. So I gave up my instrument. And little by little, did I learn that the harmonies that I was creating with my strings don't compare at all with the harmonies that I have now learned to create with human beings, with human souls.
Mm-hmm.
And I read that, I was like, oh my God, no. Don't tell me I have to quit music one day. Please no. Please no, I don't want to quit music. I love it too much. So when the whole quarantine started, this sort of happened to me in a way, in a different
Right.
form, but I didn't have live music anymore. I still play, I still record, I do the stop motion videos, and I do my own music, I do everything. But all of a sudden, I discovered something that I know I cannot live without.
Right.
Because I couldn't play.
Right.
So it suddenly it made much more sense, his words. When I read it, it just struck me really hard, but it made me afraid. Now it makes much more sense.
Right.
If you step away from the thing that you really love, that you love so much that you're doing it all the time, trust me, you're gonna find something. And it's not easy to do it,
Right.
but you are going to find something. And in the music world, it's very easy to end up having a lot of conversations about music, which I tend to avoid. My closest friends, even if they're musicians, we barely talk about music, because I find it much more nourishing, and talking about music just sort of drains me, and I just don't think about it. I'm doing it so many hours in a day that I don't want to think about it anymore. So I found that if you are fortunate, or whatever adjective you want to put it, enough to find something that you enjoy, and you actually take it seriously, it might be very good. It might make your life much better. And that's what's going on for me in this case. I had the idea, I tried it, I thought, I have the time in my hands, I'm going to keep doing it, I'm going to take it more seriously, I'm going to learn. And now it makes me so happy. The first big step was I posted on Facebook, hey, I need a lighting lesson, I have a problem.
I remember.
Yeah.
I saw
and
the
then
post.
this friend of mine tagged somebody, and this guy Joe, he's been, oh my god, he's been amazing. My first lesson lasted 90 seconds. And it changed my whole game. In 90 seconds, he changed my whole game. He told me about a few things about use only one light and use some cardboard to make edges and cover the light and whatever. Suddenly this new universe expanded. How light is a character, is another character. Right. How light gives all the personality to the scene. So I realized, wow, so many things come into play that I didn't dare to touch before. But now I do. Thanks to this guy, actually. He didn't open only lighting. He made me understand that all the things that I before used to think that only superhumans can do. Now I can do it too.
Right. Yeah.
And I have become a superhuman. I think I'm alright. I'm cool. I have a lot of love in my heart. I love to make people laugh. But I didn't become a superhuman, and now I can do these things. So thank you, quarantine. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, life. I got a cloth making lesson with a dear friend of mine, too, Diana.
Yeah. But this is what we were talking about before, because if you're a creative person, you happen to be a musician, but if at one point in your life things would have gone differently, I was talking to a good friend of mine who's a musician, who at one point wanted to be a writer, and early on, when I was very young, it was because I always loved music, so it was either music or writing. I chose writing at that moment, but I could have chosen music. The idea is that when you're a creative person, just like we talked before we started recording, I should have a hidden, those extra, a recording of those extra conversations we had before we started doing the interview. But that's the truth is that creativity comes out in many forms, and whatever you do, if you're a creative person, because you took this. And this is what I thought about when you said the idea of talking about music, and being creative when you're bored. I think it has a lot to do also with not seeing this as work, right? Because you're creative as a musician, but music is also work. So you're creative within a context of, having to produce something as work. But when you are doing are starting to do something new, like this stop motion technique and everything, you're not thinking of it as work because you don't identify with it. It's not what you do, it's not your profession. So there's where that kind of boredom kicks in, where it's just like a canvas, an empty slate, where you can start to develop it with no restrictions on, without having these little paradigms in your head of how does this fit into my identity of who I am, because you're just starting out. So that boredom maybe is just kind of this blank slate of not being conditioned by any direction. This isn't your work, this isn't what you do. You might be good at it, you might not be good at it, you're discovering. And that's this kind of boredom, right, that we're talking about, where you're just not conditioned by, you're just letting things flow freely. This was a great, what I loved a lot about what you've been doing and following what you've been doing is, and I've talked also to John Madoff about this, there have been two extremes since this whole pandemic started. So you have people saying, like Daniel Bennett, who said, okay, let's make the best of it. You know, be productive. This is going to be a cultural renaissance. You have to work. You have to maximize, use this time. There are other people who've been saying, okay, well, maybe that's not very healthy because it puts a lot of pressure. You know, it creates this kind of, you know, lockdown competitiveness where you feel like you have to do stuff, and it puts a lot of extra pressure on what is already a difficult psychological situation. And you, I feel, have found a really very balanced, very stable way of combining being, you know, doing something of relevance to yourself, for yourself, something creative, but without pushing it into the direction of feeling forced to produce something. So I think this is a very balanced, very, you know, there's a great equilibrium to what you've been doing that I admire a lot in this situation. You've got a complete like yoga mindset about this, where you know what I mean, where it's like, all right, well, I'm gonna do stuff. I have a lot of time, but you're under no pressure, and you seem to be under no pressure. You know, you seem super relaxed and enjoying what you're doing. And that's that's really relevant. It was relevant for me because you've been doing these different things. You're also, I've seen a video recently you've done with Arturo, recently, which you're gonna do every Sunday, right? So that's another thing that you're, and I want to talk about that a little bit too, because that was amazing to me. Many musicians have done, you know, online sessions and videos, but that's an orchestra. So that was, I counted 18 musicians at one point. Tell me a little bit about that, about these gigs with Arturo, and you know, and the challenges of actually getting everything to work with 18 people.
This band, specifically Arturo, as a human being, I think it was the beginning. No, I know it was the beginning of me being able to unleash all my creative ideas. And I'm going to tell you why. I've been a musician since I'm an adult and a little bit before. And we were talking, before we started the interview, we were talking about the whole being broke. Like now we're all broke.
Right.
But being broke for me has been the comfort zone. I have a lot of experience being broke. So you know, when you have experience with something, you learn to navigate it and to just be okay and good with it.
Right.
So, but that's a good side. The side that is a little bit more challenging is that living in New York and being broke, it was, since the beginning, it was a pressure of, oh my God, how am I going to pay rent? And when I was 20, I didn't care. Mm. But somehow 10 plus years later, I started caring, and so I'm like, oh, rent. So this pressure made it in a way that my mindset was put on, okay, I need to be very good, so I have work. So I dedicated myself to be good at the upright bass and the bass and all the things I play. So then years go by, things started going a little bit better, and then I land with Arturo. The moment I land with Arturo, he seemed to trust me and to love me and to love what I do and what I am and who I am. So all of a sudden, I didn't only have a lot of work, and it was good work. The music is good, the shows are good, we do big shows in beautiful places. But also I felt I had the trust of somebody. Right. This man that I admire so much, that is a hero, and his father was a superhero, and you know, the band has 6 Grammys, for example. It's like all this, wow, you know. Suddenly this person trusts me, and he's crazy, and I'm crazy, and we're all crazy. And he trusts me, and the way he did it with so much love changed something in me. It made me feel, okay, done. It's over. This surviving thing is over.
Right.
Now let me live. Suddenly I'm out of my comfort zone. I need to learn how to live and not survive anymore.
Right.
So what that did is that over the time, there were many things about self-confidence that grew, about trusting creative processes that grew. So I'm saying all that because I want to leave clear how much I love being in this project and how much I love this man. And so it was a step-by-step process. I started playing a little bit with them, then more. Now I'm regular in the now I'm the bass player of the bands, because there's many bands.
When did you start?
I first played with him in the basement of his house, not knowing that he was going to be there. About 5 years ago. I can tell you how much I freaked out when I saw him. I came down and then he was sitting on the piano. I was like, what?
But how'd you end up there, not knowing that he's there?
Because I knew his sons.
Okay.
And one of them told me, let's do a session at my house. I was like, sure. And then dude was there, you know. So that was about 5 years ago. Then we started doing some projects. The first project that I did with him was very cool. Was we used to go to crazy places in the Bronx and play music for the residents. The first one was in a laundromat, then in a boxing ring, in a public square, in a car wash,
Right.
in bodegas. It was crazy. Like we did all sorts of different things. In a tattoo parlor that was built inside of an old subway cart. You know, so that was the first one, and then I started playing with the orchestra, and then the years went by. A bit over a year ago, I entered officially as the bass player of the band. There's also a family band, which is him, his 2 kids, and me. So I'm the adopted. And so anyway, with the orchestra, we play every Sunday at Berlin Jazz Club, which is, you know, one of the clubs.
Right.
They have been doing it for almost 25 years. Now it's hard to keep a weekly gig for a week. Imagine 25 years. So one of the things that does is that if you've been doing something for 25 years, it's gonna take a lot more than a pandemic to make you stop. So Arturo called us up and he says, guys, let's do it. Let's play at Berlin. But virtual Berlin. So let's record 6 tunes and do that every week. You have no idea how much work this is.
I can imagine.
Oh my God.
That's what I thought when I was looking, because the video and the audio quality is really good, which, you know, is a challenge in itself to produce in 18 different living rooms. So
first of all, the video, the person that is doing the video, my hat off and my unconditional respect, Brian Davis is one of the trumpet players of the band. So he's not only recording, but he's also in the video. I think he spent like 40 hours in the first one.
Yeah.
And the sound guy, Oscar, a new good friend. Also, he spent so much time, because imagine having 18 musicians record with whatever they have. Some like me have, you know, I have equipment. I've been doing this for a while. Some are with this. Some people record with this. So imagine putting that together, video and audio. Yeah. So the way the process is first of all, Arturo decides the tunes and the structure. This is heavily not only improvised, but syncopated music. So the first person that records is the drummer. With nothing, with his imagination, with his memory of knowing this is what's going on, this is what's going on. After this, he sends the track to me, and I record the bass. With no melody, with nothing's going on. It's just, you have to rely on you knowing the music and praying that it's right. And then I send it to the rest of the rhythm section. percussionist, Arturo on the piano. They send it back to me. I do a little mix, and we send it to the horns. So the other 13 musicians. And then we send it to the sound engineer and to the video and to Brian, who's doing the video. And then they do their superhero work. And that's it. So it's heavy because if you're recording in a studio with a band or with something sounding there,
right?
Even if you don't know the music so good, you hear what's going on.
Yeah.
In this case, we hear nothing. The drummer has 0 cues. He's making everything for himself.
Yeah.
The only cue I have is the drummer maybe signaling something.
Yeah.
A change, but what change? So, especially for all of us who are doing the first part, it's very challenging because you have to focus so hard. It's it's proven to be a big challenge, which we're learning to overcome. We're on the 2nd week now.
Yeah.
This morning before starting the interview, I recorded the 5th song quickly, and I only have 1 more left for this Sunday. So yeah, hopefully, the intention is to keep it going every week. Listen, this is music for making people dance, for making people happy, for making people have fun.
Right.
If we cannot have it live at Berlin and at all the theaters and festivals that we play at,
yeah,
we might as well bring it to your house.
Yeah.
So we've done it before.
Yeah.
We went to people's places and squares and laundromats to play. Sure, we can do it over the internet.
Yeah, I've been really surprised with the way that people have been, because a lot of people do living room gigs now, but it's one thing to get a guitar and play live on Facebook with your webcam, and it's another thing to have a whole orchestra and make a coherent video and audio presentation out of it. So it's really admirable what people have been able to do. And last week when I talked to John Madoff, I've mentioned somebody I keep giving shout outs every week to is pianist Carlos Chipa, who's a pianist from Munich, from Germany, who's been really taking this to another level. He was about to launch his most recent record, and he has been doing live videos from his living room, playing on a Steinway piano, but the audio and video quality has been remarkable. It's something you'd think it's Tiny Desk, And I told him, I wrote him, I said, Carlos, listen, once this is done, you need to put these things together in a longer video and have a whole full concert of it on YouTube. Because so that's really impressive to me, and with the same way Arturo and you guys are doing, what people have been able to do within these limitations, and to present something that's really, this was Arturo's gig was, from what I've heard, one of the best examples of doing this right, and taking it beyond just let's strum in the living room. It's just amazing to see this response. And here I'm thinking about what Daniel Bennett said about a creative renaissance and everything, and he probably has a point, because it challenges people to do something in a new way, but do it at an extraordinarily high level. To me, it's a superhuman level. It's just like what you said. It looks superhuman that you can see 18 musicians, in a week setting this up and doing this gig. So, kudos, applause, man. I enjoyed it a lot. It was great.
Yeah, man, I'm happy you enjoyed it, and I think it shines a light on the fact that we all know how to do some things.
Right.
At some point, it's just a matter of whether you're taking it seriously or not.
Yeah.
If you be like, okay, I know how to do this. Let me do it good. Why not?
Right.
If I can do it a bit good, a bit better, let me just do it. It will take more time, sure. And then you do it, and it makes a difference. This is something I've discovered. Funny enough, I've been a human being for more than 3 decades, and I'm discovering this now, that if you take it seriously, you might actually do it better. How about that?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And this situation, I think, has forced a lot of people to take stuff seriously in a way that maybe they, hadn't thought before, because it's easy to take stuff seriously when you're on a stage and you have people, a few hundred people looking at you. But it's a bit harder to get yourself to take something seriously when you're in your living room. And your ability to, decontextualize and to take yourself out of that and to see that living room as, okay, this is my stage now. This, I might as well be at Birdland. This is, the quality of work that I'm about to put in is, I think, the true success in setting something like this up,
Yeah, I love that you say the word decontextualize, because it has two sides. I can decontextualize my living room. I'm looking at it right now. I have the filming set, I have the music set, then I have the mess, then I have the cleaner part. I'm looking at it. I can say, okay, I'm here, I'm stuck. Let me think it's a place of grandeur, and But also, why don't I do the opposite? Why don't I go to a Carnegie Hall and think it's my living room? And what I'm taking from all of this is that taking the context out does what you said before, takes the pressure off.
Right.
And by taking the pressure off, pressure in whichever way, of, oh, this is so shitty, oh, this is so good.
Right.
And by taking the pressure off, the only obstacle, that you're going to encounter is whether you are going to do it or not. So it's only you. All of a sudden, it's only you. It's not, oh, I have this show at the festival that I wanted to play all my life. I'm going to prepare. No, now I don't have any deadlines. I don't have any pressure. Nobody's expecting it. It's just me. So all of a sudden, I am responsible. And I hope this is something that I'm going to learn for good.
Yeah.
With this whole process of quarantine, and everybody, if other people don't already know it, that it's only me. It's really only me. And I don't need an external pressure to make something. In fact, when I am my only deadline, in my case, I've been doing things that I really love.
Yeah.
So, and I've also noticed how I became the only responsible for my self-confidence.
Yeah.
It's not anymore whether I did good at the show and people thought that was great.
Yeah.
Or how I got more work because I am creative or proficient or have a good energy or whatever, or that people love me because I am cool, or they don't love me because I'm not cool. It's just me, it's just you. And so that's been a very revealing process to take the context out. The context is not defining, and I always thought about this, all of us, we always thought about,
right.
Oh, I don't want the context to define who I am.
Right.
But now it got a different level.
Yeah.
It got to a different layer. We peeled that onion and got to a different layer of that onion, man. Yeah. And I cried when I realized. But
yeah, no, it's a level of intimacy with yourself and with what you're doing that you don't get oftentimes, right? In life, especially as a performer, because I've been telling, oftentimes when I'm talking to musicians, it's the main difference in being creative as a writer and being creative as a musician. As a musician, oftentimes you get real-time reaction. It's a very acute process. Yeah. You hear those. People read my stories in their own homes in silence, and maybe I'll never know what they thought of it because only a handful of them will write to me or review. So, but for a musician, there's that added kind of feedback, which can be pressure in certain things, where you hear the response right away when you're doing it. I think when you're doing it, so I was already doing a bass solo, see on it.
There's one bass solo this Sunday.
I'm like an Italian. I talk with my hands a lot. So in closing, what's gonna happen? What are your plans as far as your projects and moving forward after this thing is done? After the lockdown is done? After it gradually steps into, I don't like to say normal because it suggests that things are going to be the way they were before, and I don't really believe that. But what are your plans going forward?
Try to conquer the world.
Always a good plan.
One of the people that I respect the most in the world these days is a friend of mine, Tracy Heider, who is she's the executive director of the National Jazz Museum. Just brilliant person for me. Before this whole thing really started, he said to me, "This is when the world switches to digital." And I was like, "Oh, you're right." So one of my plans for the present is to live as if this was never gonna end.
Okay.
Why? Because if it goes back to normal, I know how to do normal. I've been doing it for a long time. So I'll just jump back in.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't, I might as well start preparing now.
Yeah.
And not waiting every day in uncertainty. And one day just let's get it over with now,
Yeah.
So what I think is gonna happen is that we're not really gonna go back to normal, at least for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
We might do tries at getting back to normal, back and forths.
Mm-hmm.
But we will have to implement in our daily life forever or whatever the tools that we acquired in this time. I'm very sure of that.
Mm-hmm.
So one of my plans is continue with what I'm doing, continue with the new things I'm doing, continue with the stop motion, continue with the live sets, the music to be bored. I said in the beginning, I set up this Patreon thing which people can subscribe, and I would love to push that. I'm pushing that thing to make it, to get more people, to get a more sustainable income with that. Because I'm thinking of, if I cannot play live music, I might as well leave. I'm in New York for live music and my friends, and because I feel home. The home thing I can build wherever. Now I have a person in my life that makes me feel home. So I want to build that. The friends, most of them are gone. And the live music, well, doesn't look like we're going to have any of that anytime soon. And on top of that, it looks like we can do it from wherever. So if I can get a remote income going on, a combination of the Patreon, gigs, whatever, then I'll move to a place where I love. A place where I think weather is good and I can go to the beach or see the mountain or see parrots.
Do you have a place in mind?
Man, I have many places. I have always have thought of Thailand. Just somehow it makes me curious. I also thought of just traveling. Now I have a special person in my life who is in Venezuela, where I mostly grew up, and could go there too. It's a difficult situation there, but with income from outside, with somebody that you feel like a team and a family with, I can be anywhere. I don't care.
Yeah.
I can be in the most difficult place. I don't care.
Yeah.
So those are all things that are being taken into account. Or here, or Mexico, or Aruba. I'm also sort of from Aruba. I have family there. My grandma still lives there. You have no idea how many things I thought. I thought of making a bed and breakfast. Have bed and breakfast, have studio, and just live there. So many plans. So we'll see. So far, the focus is on creating and pushing and really taking seriously the projects that I have started, or that have started for me. More concrete things. Let's see. It might involve moving out. A lot of people are moving out. it might involve bringing the New York family to a more global level, which I would love. I would so love that. And if it doesn't, then it doesn't, then it's cool too.
Right.
And I love it. So to answer your question, with complete certainty, I have no idea.
But you know, it's so interesting that this situation that has forced us to be locked down in our own homes made you think about what is home. You know, it's a good thing to take from this. You know, what is home? And your thoughts are going like, okay, so you're home now, you're locked down in a place. But what is home? You're thinking about other places, you're thinking about other things. I always say, and I'm not necessarily an optimist by nature, by any means, but I think that there's some good will come of this in the end. You know, whether it's just taking a bit of the pressure off and making us see that, you know, you can live without that pressure, because sometimes you're so used to something that you feel like, you know, that's the only way. And this has taken a lot of pressure off of me with work. I'm doing, even with the music website, I had all of those things I wanted to do, and I was like, no, you know what, I'm gonna talk to my friends and I'm gonna see how people are doing. I'm gonna have this video series, and then I'll see, you know, what I'm gonna do. But this is what I feel like doing now, and I feel that a lot of people have responded to this in this way, to this situation, and I think that's a good thing. I really do. And you know, it's whatever happens in the future, I think it's important is exactly as you've done, and you've set a great example, to make something good out of this. You know, spend some time with yourself and kind of just learning more about what you like when the pressure is off. And that's something where you really have I think set a great example. So I'm happy that we got to talk about this. Now I'm gonna wrap this up, the official part, and then I'm gonna ask you to stick around for a couple more minutes for some final off the record goodbyes and
dark secrets.
Yeah. But it's been great talking to you, Bam. Thank you so much for participating.
Man, thank you so much. Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's been a pleasure, man, and I look forward to hearing more of your stuff and to featuring you on the website again in the near future.